Pissed Off Bastards of Bloomington. That name alone definitely grabs your attention, doesn't it?
It really does. Makes you wonder what the story is there.
Exactly. And have you ever thought about where that whole one percenter biker image, you know, where it actually started?
Well, that name, Pissed Off Bastards of Bloomington, it points right towards that history. Today, we're doing a deep dive into this specific club. We've got some really interesting sources.
Right. And the mission, like always, is to pull out the most important bits for you, save you some time, and give you a clear picture.
We're looking at their formation, some key events, their legacy, basically trying to get to the heart of it.
Yeah, think of it as your shortcut to understanding a really foundational piece of motorcycle club history. And maybe find out the surprising origin of a term you've probably heard.
Okay, so let's get into it. Where do we start? Our sources point to 1945 for the formation.
1945, yeah. In Bloomington, California, which is just a little west of San Bernardino.
And the founder name was Norman Briggs.
And here's something interesting right off the bat. It wasn't just motorcycles at first.
Ah, right. They were an outlaw motorcycle and car club initially.
Which is kind of different from how we might picture these clubs today.
Definitely. Their focus was stated as, well, outlaw activities for both bikes and cars, all based in California to begin with.
This is post-World War II, right? So
Yeah.
you've got that whole context of guys coming back, maybe looking for something different.
Exactly. A time of change and maybe some restlessness. A lot of these kinds of groups started popping up then.
Okay, so let's jump forward just a couple of years. 1947, July 4th. This seems like a big one.
Huge. Hollister, California. There was an official American Motorcycle Association event, an AMA-sanctioned gypsy tour run.
Sounds pretty standard, like an organized ride.
It was supposed to be, but then the Pissed Off Bastards showed up, along with some other clubs like the Booze Fighters, the Market Street Commandos.
And things got a little out of hand.
You could say that. The sources say they pretty much took over the town for almost 3 days.
3 days. Okay, that's definitely not your typical AMA event.
Not at all. And the P.O. Bob, specifically, are mentioned as playing an integral role in what happened. It became known as the Hollister riot.
A riot. Wow. And this had bigger ripples, right?
Oh, absolutely. Huge cultural impact. This whole Hollister incident, that's what the movie The Wild One was based on. You know, the one with Marlon Brando from 1953.
Right. I know that movie. So that film, which really cemented that biker image for a lot of people, came directly from this event involving the P.O. Bat.
Pretty much. It shows how a sort of localized event can really blow up and shape perception on a massive scale.
Incredible. But the story doesn't stop there, does it? There was another incident soon after.
Yeah, just 2 months later, Labor Day weekend, still 1947, this time in Riverside, California.
Another AMA event.
Apparently so. And, well, history kind of repeated itself. Similar stuff happened. Bikers, locals, sources say they took over the main street again.
Echoes of Hollister.
Definitely. And the scale was even bigger this time. Reports mention over 4,000 people involved.
4,000. You can imagine the authorities weren't too pleased.
Not at all. The Riverside sheriff at the time, Carl Rayburn, he was quoted blaming a bunch of punk kids, called them rebels. They're outlaws.
Outlaws. There's that word again.
Yeah.
That language really starts to frame how these guys were seen, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And this reaction, this perception, it really sets the stage for probably the most famous term associated with all this.
You mean the one percenter thing?
Exactly. That brings us to 1948. The story, and it's a widely told one, is that the AMA itself make a statement, trying to do some damage control, presumably.
Okay, what do they supposedly say?
The line goes something like this. 99% of motorcyclists are good, law-abiding people enjoying a clean sport. But it's that other 1%. They're the antisocial barbarians.
Wow. So that's supposedly where one percenter comes from. Directly attributed to the AMA reacting to Hollister and Riverside.
That's the common narrative. Whether the AMA actually said those exact words or if it became attributed to them, well, that statement or the idea of it stuck. It became a defining label.
It's fascinating how powerful a single phrase can be. Did some clubs then sort of embrace that label?
Oh, absolutely. It became a badge of honor for clubs that saw themselves as outside the mainstream, rejecting the AMA's definition of respectability.
So the P.O. Bob didn't just disappear after these incidents, right? They kind of went quiet for a bit.
Sources say they reemerged about 3 years later, so around 1951.
But what was different then?
Well, it came back specifically as a motorcycle club. They dropped the car club part.
Okay.
and they set up shop in Fontana, which apparently had this nickname, Felony Flats.
Felony Flats. Okay, that tells you something about the area, or at least its reputation.
Right, suggests they weren't exactly trying to blend in with the mainstream anymore.
And credibly, they're still around today.
Yes, they are, though often known now as the pissed-off bastards of Bordeaux being slang for San Bernardino.
And they've expanded beyond just that one area.
Seems so.
Yeah.
Sources mention chapters or presence throughout California and also in Nevada and Utah. So, yeah, definitely not just a historical artifact. They're still an active club.
Let's talk about their identity a bit. Their colors, their patch. That's always significant in MC culture.
Very. Their colors are red and blue. The story goes that red is for bloodshed, and blue represents loyalty. Pretty strong symbolism there.
Yeah, definitely. And the patch, what does that look like?
It's quite distinctive. You've got the top rocker that says P-O-B-O-B in lowercase letters.
Okay.
The bottom rocker shows the state the member is from. And then the center patch. That's the really striking part. It's a character called Ace.
Ace.
Yeah, it's a skull wearing an old-style bomber hat. It's a very recognizable, very outlaw-style image.
Definitely fits the narrative we've been discussing. Do they have a motto, too?
They do. PFFP.
PFFP, what's that stand for?
P-O-B-O-B. Forever. Forever P-O-B-B.
Right. Underscores that lifelong commitment, that brotherhood aspect.
Exactly. It's all part of building that strong group identity.
Now, here's something I found really surprising in the sources. There's a connection, a direct link, between the POB Bay and the Hells Angels.
Yes. That's a crucial part of their legacy, actually. A former member of the Pissed Off Bastards.
Okay.
A guy named Otto Friedli. He is widely credited with founding the Hells Angels, or at least the Fontana Hells Angels chapter, which was one of the earliest, if not the first.
Wow. So the founder, or key founder, of the Hells Angels came from the Pissed Off Bastards.
That's what the history suggests. Apparently, he broke away from the POB. There was some kind of feud or disagreement with another gang.
So the POB acted almost like a seedbed for what would become perhaps the most famous motorcycle club in the world.
In a way, yes. It really shows how interconnected these early clubs were. Not just isolated groups, but part of a developing, sometimes volatile subculture. There were splits, new clubs forming.
That adds a whole other layer to the story. It's not just about one club, but about the whole ecosystem.
Exactly. It highlights those internal dynamics, the rivalries, the way things evolved back then.
And just so you listening know where we're getting this from, we looked at the club's own website, stuff from the History Channel, books specifically about Hells Angels history, even articles from Time magazine going way back.
Yeah, a mix of sources to try and piece together this history.
Okay, so let's quickly recap the big takeaways here. We've got the POB forming right after WWII, part car club, part bike club initially.
Then their absolutely central role in the Hollister riot in '47, which basically created the blueprint for the outlaw biker image, especially thanks to the Wild One.
Right. And then the Riverside incident shortly after, reinforcing that image and leading, supposedly, to the AMA coining the 1%er term in '48.
A term that got embraced by the very groups it was meant to condemn. And then their reemergence as a bike-only club, their continued existence today.
And that really surprising connection being the precursor, in a sense, to the Hells Angels through Otto Friedli.
It's quite a story when you lay it all out. From a small club in Bloomington to having this really significant, lasting impact.
It really is. So here's something to chew on after hearing all this. Thinking about that AMA statement, true or not, and the Hollister riot. How much power does one big, highly publicized event, or even just one catchy phrase, have in shaping how we see an entire group of people for decades afterwards? How much do those stereotypes stick?
That's a great question. Or maybe think about this. What is the fact that a club like the Pissed Off Bastards is still around, after all this time? What does that tell us about why this kind of outlaw culture appeals to people and why it endures? There's definitely more to explore there about rebellion, belonging, and how these countercultures evolve over time.